Hey everybody, Cinema Sickness here with your daily sickness video, and happy Saturday to each and every one of you. Hope you guys are having a great weekend thus far. And that's it. Let's not get too wrapped up into just talking about nothing. Let's dive right into today's daily sickness video, because we got some reviews, some movies to talk about. Movies that I've just recently watched. In fact, the first movies I've watched of 2016, and I've definitely been starting off the year pretty great, watching some cool formats, watching a lot of great movies that I've been picking up over the last like month or two that I haven't watched because I was doing my Merry Movie Marathon. So I've been diving into a lot of stuff I've really been wanting to check out. So, all right, let's just get right down into it so this video is not too incredibly long. So the first movie I watched of 2016, like I always do. I always try to watch the first movie I watch of every year. I always try to watch a movie that takes place within that year. Like, for instance, in 2015, of course, what was the first movie I watched? Back to the Future Part 2. So, unfortunately, not much to pick from when trying to find a movie that takes place in 2016. But apparently this one does, and that is Stealth. Watched it on UMD, so of course, why not start the year off right by watching a UMD video? Gotta watch a fun format like that. Now, why does this take place in 2016? You got me. I don't remember them ever saying it takes place in 2016. I was trying to pay attention to the movie as well as I could to be like, do they mention 2016? In the little narration part in the front, do they talk about 2016? No, nowhere in this movie do I see them mention 2016, but if you look this up on the internet, it's talked about many different places, not just Wikipedia, but many different places that this movie takes place in 2016. All right, if they say so. So, it was an okay movie. It's just a popcorn film. The worst part of this movie is the fact that, Josh Lucas, Jessica Biel, and Jamie Foxx. Now, I like those actors. I got nothing wrong with them. It's just, I don't know if they're not super believable as like these like ace stealth pilots. It's basically like they're like the best of the best pilots like the United States has offered, and they get to fly around these special like stealth jets and do all these special missions, and they're the best. They're the top of the top, and it's just kind of like I don't know if I really believe so much that like I don't know, they should have cast differently perhaps. I don't know. I mean, I guess maybe Jamie Foxx and Josh Lucas I can kind of see, but even them a little nuts. But I have a really hard time picturing Jessica Biel being a stealth pilot. I don't know. I just don't see her. I mean, I don't know what girl they could have chose. I'm sure I could think of somebody else, but Jessica Biel, it's like, I don't really know. But the whole movie's okay. Basically, what happens is there's this like artificial intelligent kind of like drone stealth that's supposed to be like the new technology. It's basically like it's like a computer that can think and learn, and it's going to take over basically and do all these missions and stuff. But of course they talk. It's kind of fun because it actually, the fact that this movie is supposed to take place in 2016 kind of actually is fitting, since right now we're talking about drones and are they ethical, and should we send unmanned drones to fight our armies and stuff like that, and whatnot. Is it okay to send a bomber over to some country and drop a bunch of bombs that there's no humans inside the plane, stuff like that. Is that ethical? Should we be doing that? Is that how wars should be going now? And stuff like that. Not that we should be having war at all. I mean, instead of talking about how to fight wars, maybe we should just stop having wars. But anyway, that would be ridiculous. Why would we do that? How are we going to get our oil that way? Anyway, not getting political. So anyway, they create this computer that can think and learn stuff. And it's kind of interesting because they could just have done what I've seen a million times in movies where, the computer just starts to learn and it goes crazy and takes over and bad things happen. That does happen. I mean, obviously that's the whole point. You see that coming a million miles away. But what's interesting is it learns off Josh Lucas, because he's kind of this, he's kind of like the best out of the three. He's like the best pilot, so he's kind of like the best pilot like in the world or whatever. And his problem is he's a bit reckless. Like, he kind of goes against the rules, and his commanding officers said like, don't do this, but he does it anyway. And so far he's always been lucky, and he's always succeeded in his missions, even though he does really dangerous, reckless things that could get him killed, and one day probably will. He's always pulled through. Well, he unfortunately does something like that while this computer's watching him, and the computer kind of learns like to just not follow the rules, just to get the mission done. Who cares what your commanding officer says? Who cares what anybody else says? Your job is to get the mission done, do whatever is possible to do it. And that's when things start going bad because he's not worried about like collateral damage and who he's targeting and all this stuff. Because of course, when you're going after, bad guys, something like that, you got to worry, well, we're going to kill like a bajillion innocent people while doing this. And, is this the best time to do this? Well, the computer's not thinking that. The computer's just thinking, there's a bad guy. I'm going to do whatever I have to do to kill him. That's not always good. And that's kind of teaches you how, the ethics of it and whether or not it's good to have a computer who can't think to themselves, oh, if I do this, I'm going to kill a bunch of innocent people, as opposed, computers are going to think, well, there's a bad guy, I got to kill him. So it's pretty interesting the way it happens. And then I like at the end of the movie, and spoiler here, everything kind of turns around. The computer kind of like ends up not being like evil. I was like, that's kind of interesting. They don't have to like necessarily destroy him and stuff like that. So an interesting kind of twist and a different type of movie. Now, the movie isn't anything great. It's just a popcorn movie. It's just, kind of felt like, let me make sure I didn't think he did this, but kind of felt like a Roland Emmerich movie, like, Independence Day or Godzilla or 2012, something like that, where it's just a fun, over-the-top, ridiculous kind of action movie. That's what it is. And it's okay. It's not bad. It's a decent movie. When I say check it out, if you like goofy, over-the-top action movies, it is one to see. It's definitely that type of movie. It's just not, it's nothing great, but it's not bad either. It's just okay. It's a popcorn film. Has an interesting kind of twist with the way the computer kind of ends up learning and how he turns things around and stuff. It's I like that aspect of it, and it's at least worth checking out. So I would say sure. If you want to see Self, at least see it. It's not bad. Hilarious scene though. Josh Lucas and Jessica Biel they have a bit of a love interest going on. Jamie Foxx is just out banging everybody, who he can get his hands on. But Josh Lucas and Jessica Biel, they like each other, and there's this one scene where they go off. I think they're like some like Asian country, and Jamie Foxx goes off and bangs some like hot Asian chick, and Josh Lucas and Jessica Biel, they go sightseeing, and they go to this like waterfall, and of course they're wearing bathing suits. He's he's in his trunks, and she's in this like super sexy bikini basically. And there's this one scene, they're taking pictures of each other, and there's this hilarious scene where Josh Lucas is standing off in the distance, and it like pans over, and it's just a shot of Jessica Biel's ass. Like she's obviously taking a picture of him, like he's posing, but it's not like they show that from like from like behind or anything, like or we can see like all Jessica Biel, or at least from like maybe her butt up or something like that. No, it's just like right here's her ass, and like Josh Lucas is like right like kind of like here in the background. It's hilarious. I was like cracking up laughing. It's such an obvious butt shot. The whole shot is just, here's your butt. Like, it's hilarious. So, it's cheesy, it's goofy, but it's kind of fun. I didn't mind it. Will I ever watch it again? I don't know, but it was okay. All right. So, this was great. As you guys know, I just recently got myself a Windows 95 computer. So, after I watched a movie that takes place in 2016, of course, the next thing I was going to do was playing around with my new computer. So, I checked out The Mask, which, man, have I not seen in so long. This movie, this and like the Ace Ventura movies were like the greatest movies ever when I was a kid. I remember like these movies coming out, just how awesome they seemed when I was a kid. And the movie is still pretty cool. I love it. Definitely shows how far Jim Carrey has come along in his acting skills. As a comedian, he's always kind of had it. I mean, whether you watch The Mask or Ace Ventura or something like new he does where he's being goofy and whatnot, he's great, and I love him in The Mask. When he's playing The Mask, he's hilarious, he's fantastic, he's hamming it up and just being his great Jim Carrey self. But in the scenes where he's playing Stanley Ipkiss and he's actually acting, it's a little iffy, and it's kind of hilarious. He's definitely come along. He's a much better. I mean, you see him now. He's a much better actor. So definitely come along from his early days to what he's doing now. So kind of nice to see how he's transitioned from, not the best actor in the world to somebody who's actually pretty good now. So I love this movie. It's hilarious. My favorite thing about it is how it's an homage to great like old school classic like Looney Tunes and stuff like that. And they make tons of references to that in here. So if you like great classic old cartoons, you're gonna see a lot of that, especially again like Looney Tunes and stuff. If you're a big Looney Tunes fan, you're gonna really enjoy this movie just because of how much of an homage they paid to it. And it's just a great film. I really do enjoy this one. And yeah, I'm trying like that's interesting. I'm just looking at the back and like who they're crediting on here. Interesting. There's like no strange. Anyway, sorry, I'm like reading the back of this, and these are all worded so weirdly. They're not like the same as DVDs. But anyway, so anyway, it's a good one. I'd recommend checking this one out if you haven't seen it. I'm sure we've all seen it, and at the very least, check it out for Cameron Diaz. That's what I was looking at the back. I don't see her name on here at all. Oh no, wait, I found her. Okay, wow, yeah. So this was one of Cameron Diaz's like early roles, and and introducing Cameron Diaz. Wow, she gets kind of pushed off to the back. Poor Cameron Diaz in this movie. She doesn't get much credit on the back in the credits on this. But anyway, Cameron Diaz looking pretty good before her nose, and yeah, definitely looking good in this movie. So again, The Mask. If you haven't seen it, I'm sure we've all seen The Mask. But if you haven't seen The Mask, it's a great, funny Jim Carrey movie. Definitely worth checking out. And then for the hell of it, I figured, wow, why not? I already have my Windows 95 computer on. How about something else? So I got the best of Saturday Night Live, the best of Dan Aykroyd. I don't know much to say about this one. It's just what it is. It's the best of Dan Aykroyd, a bunch of great Dan Aykroyd skits. They're hit or miss. Some are great. Some are not as great. What I really enjoy, though, is that when the credits are rolling, they actually show a live performance of the Blues Brothers. And it's a song where Dan Aykroyd's singing mostly. Because I guess if you've seen Blues Brothers, it's like he's not exactly the one to be singing all the time. So I love it, and I thought it was really cool. It's something I've never seen. I've seen like all these skits before, but I had not seen that like live performance of the Blues Brothers, and it was great. So worth it for that alone. But it's pretty funny. It's decent. It's worth checking out. I don't know if you can get this on anything else but movie CDs, so whatever. But it's a Best of Dan Aykroyd, so any Best of Dan Aykroyd, I know they have a DVD. I own it. I'm sure they have it on VHS and all that stuff too. So if you can get your hands on a Best of Dan Aykroyd, of course it's worth picking up. It's great. A Best of anybody on Saturday Night Live is great and worth picking up. Again, not much to say about it. It was fun. It was funny. It's Dan Aykroyd. Can't go wrong. This I was really excited to check out. I remember when I saw this, I was like, I wonder how that's going to be, especially due to the casting. And then when the movie came out, I didn't really hear much about it. Like it kind of there was a bunch of buzz about it coming out, and then it came out, and then I didn't hear too much about it. So I was like, is that good? Or did I just not happen to hear anything about it, or is that like a bad like I didn't hear anything about it? And when I picked this up, a lot of you guys said it's really good. I got to see it, and that is Ant-Man. Again, really excited about checking this one out. Again, I was questioning Paul Rudd. I was like, okay, I'm used to his comedic chops, and is he going to be good as a superhero? Can Marvel do no wrong? I mean, they take all these like Guardians of the Galaxy and Ant-Man, characters that like your average Joe probably doesn't even know exist. And they make these fantastic movies out of them. It's like they just can't do wrong. And I'm so excited about that because I want to see more. I love how they tied this into the Avengers. They're really tying in the Marvel, like cinema, the MCU as they're calling it. They're really tying in the Marvel Cinematic Universe like all together. I think that's so cool. The scene where he's going to like what he thinks is an abandoned warehouse, and it turns out no, that's the warehouse they turned into the Avengers, the Avengers. What's I'm looking for, like base. It's pretty funny and just a great scene. So I was blown away by this. This was a really fun movie, and Paul Rudd was good at it because he kind of had that whole he wasn't like super funny all the time, but he was able to pull some one-liners and say some funny things. He was able to use his comedic abilities to work for his character, where he wasn't like constantly cracking one-liners or joke after joke after joke where the movie was just kind of cheesy, but every now and then he would do something that was rather funny, or he would say something and deliver it in kind of a funny way, and it really worked. So the casting actually surprisingly was a lot better than I had expected. I actually saw something online about how apparently they didn't think Paul Rudd was going to get as in shape as he apparently did. Apparently, he was pretty ripped in the movie, and they didn't expect him to be quite that ripped. And apparently the scene in the movie where he's has his shirt off, apparently that was all just like last minute type of thing. Like let's do a shirt off scene where he's like training and whatnot. So I found that kind of amusing when I learned that. So again, good movie, awesome cliffhanger. Of course, I mean the cliffhanger. I was like, yes, I want to see where this goes. I'm assuming maybe a team up with the Avengers at some point or something like that. I don't know. Maybe you guys can clue me in on where the franchise is going to go. I'm not sure. I haven't really looked into it, but It was great. I was blown away. I thought I was going to enjoy it, but I didn't realize I was going to enjoy it as much as I did. It was really good. Just as good as everybody says. A lot of people were saying it was great. You got to check it out. And I agree. It was a great movie. And Marvel, keep them coming. In fact, Fox, just give the rights to Marvel. Just stop making movies. I mean, even, can you, I mean, okay, we got the Fantastic Four movies, you know, all the other movies they did, a lot of them were just, you know, like the Fox just isn't doing a good job. And I know a lot of people like the X-Men movies, and the X-Men movies are good. I mean, it's like kind of it's sort of, a lot of people think that, and I sort of agree, that the Marvel movies are kind of like, or I mean the X-Men movies are kind of like the one saving grace to Fox's you know, to Marvel movies. And I would agree, but can you imagine those movies, you know, being done by Marvel and Disney? Could you imagine how good those movies would be? I want to see Disney Marvel do an X-Men movie. Like, mind blown on how great that would be. Of course, it just kind of sucks because in my head, you know, you picture all these certain characters now as, or certain actors and actresses as those characters, and like that's the way we see them. Like, we know who Wolverine is, we know who Storm is, we know who Professor, you know, we know all these characters and who plays them, and it's gonna be kind of weird to see like somebody else playing those characters. It's gonna be hard to I think to start, at least for me anyway, it's gonna be hard to start things back up again if they do an X-Men movie, because I'm just so I mean, with the bajillion X-Men movies that have been out now, I'm just so used to seeing those actors play those characters, and it's gonna be hard to get to wrap my head around somebody else. But regardless, Fox, come on, just do it. Just stop. Let Marvel do this. They're doing such a great job. I want to see them. I want to see some good, you know, Fantastic Four movies and stuff like that come out, please. So anyway, awesome movie. Check it out. Then we have Love and Mercy. This I picked up just randomly, thought it looked pretty interesting, and turned out to be really good. All about Brian Wilson from the Beach Boys. You guys don't know about him. He's got some mental issues, and his battle with that kind of his whole life, and just a really interesting story going from his, well, they talk about his childhood a little bit. It kind of starts out with like when the Beach Boys first took off, but of course they do go back and talk about his childhood some, but just a progression of how his like sort of mental illness, went from, you know, kind of nothing to what it became, and how, you know, how he wrote music, and his, you know, he used that like sort of illness he sort of has to really use his music. And the guy's like a genius, and of course nowadays he's recognized as like one of the greatest songwriters of all time. And it goes into Paul Giamatti in this movie plays his like psychiatrist, or psychologist or psychiatrist, which is the one who can deal drugs. The one who can deal drugs. I always forget which one's which. But he plays that, and oh my god, Paul Giamatti. Wow, in this movie, Paul Giamatti has always kind of played a good like dick character. Again, I think Paul Giamatti, again, greatest actor of all time, in my opinion. I love Paul Giamatti, favorite actor. And in this movie, oh, he just plays the biggest a-hole there ever was. I mean, I think he was having fun with this role. Just watching him lose it and go nuts, like he is taking it to like the millionth degree. He is just flipping out like hardcore. I want to see, like, I'm looking at this now just to make sure it doesn't have like a gag reel or something. It doesn't. I want to see like behind the scenes like of him screaming and then flipping out the way he does. There's no way people weren't either like scared or just cracking up laughing, because he is in their face, like just going nuts. And I'm just like, wow, like he really went off in this role. I mean, I don't know if he was like working out some demons or what, but he takes it further than I would assume anybody else ever would with which is just how he flips out on people. But it's great. He plays a great character. So really cool movie. Again, all about Brian Wilson and his life. And I mean, this movie's only 122 minutes long, so it's 2 hours long. So they crammed as much as they could in 2 hours. It did feel a little rushed, even at 2 hours, because I mean, we're talking about this, you know, a whole life of a person. So of course you're trying to just, you know, give you the basics of what happened, and it does feel a little rushed, as these movies tend to do for me. I think usually when I see a biopic, a lot of times I do feel maybe it's a little rushed, because you're getting so much information, you know, somebody's entire life. Here's it in like an hour and a half or 2 hours. You know, it is what it is. But Regardless, done very well, very awesome, a great movie. I didn't know a ton about Brian Wilson. I knew certain things about him. I knew about his, his illness and his songs he wrote and stuff like that. I knew some things about him, but there was lots of stuff I didn't know, lots of stuff I learned about him. So definitely worth checking out. I do hear this movie maybe was embellished a little bit at certain parts. Apparently, even Paul Giamatti's character, maybe wasn't quite that over the top. He was nuts, and what he was doing to Brian Wilson, like drugging him and trying to basically take control of Brian Wilson and get his money and really suck him dry and stuff like that. I hear that's kind of that was all sort of true, but maybe not to the extent. I mean, that's just what I've read. I don't know. Also, I find it amusing that Brian Wilson is a little bit of a heavy-set dude, and he's being played by John Cusack in this movie, who's pretty skinny throughout the whole film. But regardless, it was good. Check it out. I was surprised by it. Really good. Then I watched Mission Impossible: Rogue Nation. These movies just keep getting better and better and better. They have not gone downhill. They are on a steady incline, and I hope to God we get some more Mission Impossible movies. I am loving these. I am a big fan of the first Mission Impossible movies. I think they're great. They're fun movies. They're just fun action films. They're over the top, but in a more kind of fun, serious way. They're not so over the top and whatnot. They're kind of goofy. They're really fun, and they're kind of they're serious, and they're just super awesome movies. Great stories, great plots. I love all the acting in it. Tom Cruise, he can be hit or miss for me, but in these movies, he's great. I love Tom Cruise in these movies. I also love Simon Pegg in this movie. I love that he's featured in this movie so incredibly much. He's one of the main characters of this film, and I think he's just fantastic. The fact that he gets so much screen time in this movie, because I am definitely a big Simon Pegg fan. So very awesome movie. If you like the other Mission Impossible movies, you gotta see this one if you haven't seen it yet, because the other ones are fantastic, and in my opinion, they just keep getting better and better and better, and now we're up to the best of the best, and I want to see more. Please, for the love of God, Tom Cruise or whomever, do more Mission Impossible movies. I want to see more of these. This was great. Just do more before you get too old. So that was awesome. All right, then a movie I only have a digital copy of, so I can't hold it up and show you, and that is Atari Game Over, which is all about the Atari, or the landfill that apparently all the E.T. games were dumped in. The movie was okay. It documents them kind of digging up the landfill and finding the cartridges and whatnot. And it is somewhat sort of a letdown, because the whole myth is that E.T. killed the video game industry, and it's the worst game of all time, which, first of all, E.T. is not the worst game of all time. I hate when people say that. It's not. The game's not necessarily good, but it's by far not the worst game of all time. It's not even close. But so it's all about the worst game of all time that could kill the video game industry, which it didn't do. And apparently they took all these extra cards that they had so many of and dumped them into this landfill and buried them, and they've been there for all these years. Well, not exactly. I'm sure you all know about it by now. I'm sure you've all read about it or heard about it at least. But the fact that they did find where they dumped the cartridges, but it wasn't just ET cartridges. Now, there were ET cartridges, but it was all different types of cartridges and systems and joysticks and all kinds of accessories. They basically emptied out a warehouse and just they got rid of it. They needed to clear out this warehouse, and they just dumped it all because they went bankrupt. Atari went under, so they just dumped all this stuff just in this landfill. So it was all there. So it's kind of a little anticlimactic, because it's the whole thing's about this ET, and they dig it up, and it's it turned out it's just a whole bunch of crap. Yeah, ET. There are some ETs in there, but that's not all they buried. They buried everything. So the myth was basically debunked. But what is good about this is the history of Atari. They really go into the history of Atari, and that's really, really cool. And I was really digging that part. It's almost, the way I saw this, I was kind of watching it as an Atari documentary that also happened to be talking about, digging up a landfill. That's kind of the way I was seeing it. It's not, I don't think it's supposed to be taken that way. It's supposed to be taken as, the story of digging up these carts and digging up this landfill and trying to find these ET carts with a bit of Atari information, history of Atari thrown in. No, to me, it was the other way around. It was an Atari history lesson with some digging involved, some archaeology involved as well. So was it good? For the Atari history aspect of it, yes. I would say it was worth checking out. I learned a lot about Atari. Definitely cool. Pretty awesome. And you get some fun of them trying to find these cards and what happens. So it's worth seeing. It's just not, maybe not executed as well as it could have been. It's just sort of okay. But it was alright. If you're into video games and you just want to learn about Atari, it's worth seeing. Alright. Another documentary. Should grab some water for this one. I didn't expect this to be so long. So another documentary that I can't hold up and show you, as I only own a digital copy of, and that is That Guy, Dick Miller. Now, if you're thinking, Dick Miller? Who's Dick Miller? Pause this video, Google Dick Miller. Once you see his face, you're going to be like, oh, that guy I've seen from 30,000 billion movies. He's been in everything. Started out with Roger Corman. He's been in... what has he been in? He's been in Terminator. He's been in Gremlins. I can name 1,000 more movies. He's been in so many movies, and as soon as you see his face, you're gonna know who he is because I guarantee you've seen at least one movie with him, and he's been in a lot. So it's really cool. It talks about just his life, everything from when he was a kid and how he came out to Hollywood and stuff like that, how he started acting, up to just how he got into movies, Roger Corman and stuff. And it's really cool to hear about how he's a guy who's never really gone to auditions or read for movies. He's based his whole career on people just calling him and saying, do you want to be in this movie? And it's really interesting. Everything from him being in, major starring roles to him just being, some dude who's in the movie for like 2 minutes, or somebody just playing like, a little side character or whatever. But it's really interesting, the fact that he's just made his whole career out of people just calling him and wanting him in their movies. So very awesome. Definitely recommend it. If you are really into movies, you're really into like B movies, like Roger Corman stuff, you just like great films, or you're just a fan of Dick Miller in general because you've seen him in a million different movies. Very well done, very good documentary, and definitely worth seeing for any film buff out there. It is a must see. I went in this one hoping it was going to be good. I was like, man, they better do a good job with this movie, or this documentary. I hope it's done well, and it definitely was. So That Guy, Dick Miller, see it. It is a must see for any film buff out there. Highly, highly recommend it. All right, then what the hell? Why not another movie CD? Surf Nazis Must Die. Some trauma here. I've never seen this movie. I know it's got definitely a following, a bit of a cult hit, as a lot of trauma movies do. I've never seen it, and it was okay. Here's the thing about this movie. It's see how long this movie is. I don't even know they say that kind of stuff on the back of these. 84 minutes. So not even wow. It felt much longer than that. That's already a bad sign. The problem with this movie is that only about 15 minutes of this movie is really good. The rest of the film, it's kind of just, they're showing these, what ended up happening is, there's like a disaster, and these gangs sort of take over, and of course they're surfers, so they kind of take over like beaches and whatnot, they're causing all this havoc, and all this mayhem, and now you got all these rival gangs, but the Surf Nazis, that gang is the gang that's kind of rising up and taking over. The other gangs aren't too cool with that, and they're trying to stop the Nazis and whatnot, but the Nazis are too tough, and they're not getting anywhere. The Nazis are wiping everybody out, and it's just, and the problem is that the whole like 90% of the movie, we're just seeing these surf Nazis kind of do bad things and talk a lot, and then other gangs wanting to do something and then not succeeding, and it's just kind of like, we could have learned about that in the first like 20 minutes of the movie, or like first half hour of the movie. They didn't need to just go on and on and on about it. So the whole beginning of this movie really drags on. But the fun part comes in like the last 15 minutes of the movie, where Eleanor, aka Mama, she is this mean, rough, tough, like take no prisoners, like black lady living in this. She ended up having to go into this nursing home, where hilarious every time they cut back to her in this nursing home and the way she's handling that. It's great. She is awesome. Motorcycle riding, boat driving, awesomeness. And her son was killed by the surf Nazis, so she is going to get her revenge, and that's where the movie starts to become awesome, because she gets her revenge on these Nazis, and it's her going around killing all these surf Nazis, and the awesome ways in which she goes about doing it. It's great, and I'm like, why was like 90% of the movie not this? The movie should have been centered around her killing surf Nazis. That would have been awesome. Not 90% of the movie just about people talking and showing us gangs really doing not much of anything and just a lot of boring, drawn-out parts with a really cool ending. So the movie was just mediocre. I wasn't blown away by it. I thought it was just all right. Yeah, it just wasn't that good, except for the end when Eleanor just goes nuts and just starts taking her revenge on her son by killing all these Nazis, which is really, really cool. I love the ending of this movie. So the ending of this movie, awesome, fantastic, really cool. At least, was this movie worth seeing? It's at least worth seeing for the ending. If you were a fan of Trauma and you want to see a really cool ending to a movie, I would say see it, but it's nothing you need to see because it is kind of, like I said, it's sort of drawn out. Like the whole first hour plus of this movie isn't very fun. It's rather boring, and I was kind of getting, I was waiting for something to happen. I was kind of getting bored with the movie, but at least the end paid off. At least it had a really good ending. So is it worth seeing? If you want to see it, then it's worth seeing. I would say yes. If it's something you've been thinking, if you haven't checked it out yet and you want to see the movie, then it's definitely worth seeing. But nothing you need to see, unfortunately. But again, for Trauma, it's not bad. And the last one we're going to talk about, once again, one I can't physically hold up and show you as I only have a digital copy of, and that is Green Day, Heart Like a Hand Grenade. And it's a whole documentary about the making of American Idiot. The weird thing about this movie is American Idiot, the album, came out in 2004. I think like September 2004. This documentary, from 2015, from last year. It took 11 years for this documentary to come out? Like, what? Why? Like, why did it take so long? There's been another documentary about the making of an album put out before this one. They did a documentary about Uno Dos Tres. They did a documentary about the making of that triple CD album. That's already come and gone. And now 11 years later they do Heart Like a Hand Grenade, which I don't know. The main issue I have with this movie too is also the editing of it. The guy who put this together, I wasn't blown away by his editing skills. It felt very amateurish. Definitely felt like somebody who was doing something like this for their first time, and maybe that's the case. I don't know how many documentaries or films wherever the director of this documentary has done, but it did feel very amateurish. It did feel like somebody's first ever kind of project, maybe from like a college project or something like that. It just was. I didn't feel like it was done very well. They have some weird things going on, even spots where it's like they got the members of Green Day involved. Like if I was Green Day, I'd feel really embarrassed doing some of this stuff because it just seemed kind of cheesy and like it basically it's like I'm trying to think how to describe it. When you're first starting out doing something, for anybody who does art, whether it's making films or photography or painting or sculpting, whatever you do, when you first started, you had all these ideas in your head. You're like, that's such a cool idea, and you would do it, and you would think that's great. And then years later, you look back on that and go, oh my god, like, what the hell was I thinking? That's so cheesy. I look back on that now and think, what was I thinking? It was the same thing with because I went to school for photography. Things I thought were really cool, like when I first got into photography in high school, that I was like, that's a really neat idea. Look what I'm doing with like light and all this kind of stuff. I look back on it and go, wow, that is really amateurish and looks like garbage. But at the time, I thought it was so cool and so neat when really I was shooting crap. And that's kind of the way I feel this documentary kind of worked out, where the guy who was doing this movie thought he had all these really cool ideas, and they really weren't. They were pretty cheesy, dumb ideas. And I'm sure someday he'll look back on, maybe 11 years from now, jeez, he'll look back on it and be like, wow, what was I thinking? I don't know. So kind of weird. Took really long for this movie to come out, this documentary to come out. The editing wasn't all that great. Some of it was kind of cheesy. But is it worth seeing? If you're a Green Day fan, yes, because it does have a lot of really cool behind-the-scenes footage of Green Day putting this album together, and that's where the documentary becomes worth it if you're a Green Day fan, because there's a lot of really awesome footage that was shot, and it's worth seeing it for that alone. If you take out all the kind of cheesiness that the director did, and you just watch the cool footage that he shot with Green Day, then it's awesome. Then it's really cool. So it is worth seeing if you're a Green Day fan. Again, it's hard to say. It just it was a cheesy kind of, felt very amateurish documentary, but it has a lot of really cool footage that was shot of Green Day recording their album and what goes on behind the scenes of them recording an album. So worth seeing, definitely, but just not the best documentary I've ever seen, and just felt very amateurish. But all in all, worth seeing if you like Green Day. So all right, guys, there you go. That was it. That's the first like 10 movies I've watched in 2016. So a lot of cool stuff. Definitely starting off well. Glad I got to watch a bunch of movie CDs. Looking forward to watching some more of that. Also looking forward to getting into a bunch more like newer films I've recently picked up, like over maybe like late November and into December that I haven't watched yet. So definitely looking forward to that. A lot of stuff I picked up over like Black Friday that I'm looking forward to checking out. So a lot of really cool stuff coming up. I have Fantastic Four, probably my next review video. I'm talking about Fantastic Four, the Minions movie. I know that already, so stay tuned for that. So, all right, guys, that's it. So like I always say, thank you guys so much for checking this video out. Be sure to hit that like button down below. Also, if you want a new video from me every single day, be sure to hit that subscribe button. And also, if you want to pick yourself up some Cinema Sickness gear, some Cinema Sickness t-shirts and whatnot, head over to cinemasickness.spreadshirt.com and grab yourself some. There's actually a 15% off code right now. If you go to spreadshirt.com, it'll tell you the code. I think it's like, I honestly can't remember the code. Go to spreadshirt.com, and right at the top of the page, it'll give you the code to get 15% off your entire purchase. Any purchase you make, whether it's my stuff, somebody else's stuff, you're going to get 15% off. And then go to cinemasickness.spreadshirt.com and purchase yourself some Cinema Sickness gear using that code. So, all right, guys, that's it. Have a great one, and I will see you all tomorrow. See you then. Bye.